I'll show a quick demo of how I would do bindings for an existing React component, quite a complex one, like the anti-signs select component. So you can see here that the select component is animated, it has a loading state, you can have multiple items selected, you can remove them. And if we look at the props for the code, you can see that it's pretty intense. There are a lot of different options, and it takes some children component types like option and op groups. And so I'm going to bind all of this real quick using a couple different techniques and see what it's going to take to actually get this rendering. To start with, I just copied and pasted the quick start and edited it very, very slightly. We just have a index.html. This is going to pull in the style sheet for anti-sign, just so I don't have to set up the whole Webpack thing. And that's it. It's going to pull in the JavaScript that we compile from index.re. Index.re is just rendering our component 1. That's right here. So you can see it's a simple component that just renders a string of hello. And if we look at this, you can see, there we go. And just to show that this is the right thing, we'll add some exclamation marks, refresh, and there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is inside of ant.re, which is the ant module that I'm going to create. It's not going to have much code. It's just going to mostly have bindings. So I'm going to create a select module for this select component. This is going to have a binding to a JavaScript module. This is what we would normally require or import on the JavaScript side. And I'm also going to mark this as a React component. And the instantiating function is called make. I'm just going to give it a little dummy function for right now and say that it takes a unit and that it returns a React element, and it's just equal to select. So this is going to say that it's the ant_d.select. So very similar to, for example, if you were to do, say, require or import select from ant_d. So this is kind of the equivalent saying this is the module, and then this function exists, and in JavaScript it's called select. So this is obviously not quite going to work, but we can go ahead and instantiate it. Let's make sure that our compiler is happy first. So it doesn't like it quite yet. Let's see why. Save that, and let's try instantiating it. So we'll say ant.select, and since we don't do anything with it yet, function component wrappers forward ref or memo. Let's see if we take this. Make is, this is external. Yeah, so this is not a function I'm defining. I'm saying this is just a function that exists externally. Okay. And okay, so now we've instantiated, our compiler's happy, and if we come in here and we refresh, we really shouldn't see anything too different. You can see that it has started to render our components already. It's not stylized, it's not parameterized, it has no children or anything like that, but we at least have the beginnings. And I can come in here and inspect it. And if I have the React Chrome DevTools, I can look at it instead of HTML as I can look at it as the component tree. And I can see here that there is the select component coming from ant, and it has lots of other things that is kind of put inside of here, mainly for this icon and for this dropdown, but we won't worry about that too much yet. What I want to do next is start making it so that I can parameterize it based off of all of these props that it can take. So to do that, I'm going to inspect this table, and I can see that there are a couple of different columns. The first is the property name, second is the description, the third is the type. And so I'm just going to simply select the table, and inside of my console, that should now become available as 0. I'm going to query select for all of the rows. Let's make an array from that. We'll then map over. And for each of these rows, we want to do a query selector to get a list of the cells. And again, let's make that an array. So you can see now we have an array of arrays. And the first element is the first cell. And the third one is the type. So that's looking right. Let's go ahead and filter that since there's a couple of errant ones like in the top. And we'll just say filter row.length is greater than 0. Let's go ahead and select table. Okay, there we go. And so now we're going to say that for each of these, we want to map a row, and we're going to return an array, which is row 0.inner text and row 2.inner text. And with any luck, we should now have arrays of the prop name and the type. So with that written out, let's go ahead and let's write copy here. Okay, so I'm going to hop over into Emacs. I'm going to open up a buffer. And what I'm going to do is open this up and write a little Emacs macro. So I'm going to record, find the first opening quotation, start the selection, search for the next quotation, come in, and I'll just cut it. Go to the next line, paste it, again, search, start the selection, search, cut, paste it in, comma, and we should be good to go. So this should give us kind of a nice first pass for all of the different options. And if we wanted to, we could also bring in the description and add that as annotations here. What I'm going to do is replace Boolean that they use with bool. And now I'm just going to go ahead and take all the ones that look like they're going to be kind of troublesome to type initially. So you can see here it's like string or an array of strings function. Let's go ahead and just move all of that out. This is an enum. I could probably turn this into a better type, but I'm going to go ahead and just move it out for just a moment. And let's do it like this. So we'll move that out, move this over here, move these. So lots of functions. We'll come back for these. These are going to be important because they're all of the behavioral on select, on blur, all that kind of stuff. And we'll move that. Looks like they, for whatever reason, capitalized Boolean, so I will lowercase that. Let's turn this into an array of strings. And what I want to do is, actually just for the whole buffer, numbers we'll just say are integers. And if they're supposed to be something else, then like a float, then we'll change that later. So this looks like a good place to get started. I'm going to use this and comment out the rest. And that should be good. All right, great. Now, these are currently all required. So this is completely going to break our compiler because we're missing a ton of different properties. I'm going to make these optional. And the way I'm going to do that is by replacing the comma with a equals question mark comma. And we should be good to go now. And then finally, select takes children. So I'm just going to say this takes children. I don't know what it is right now. It's some sort of React component, so we'll just say that. And we should be good to go. If we now look at our component, you can see that it's missing loading. So I guess we need to make loading a option. And so you can see here that the types have correctly caught that we haven't provided children, and ant.select can't be empty. It has to have some children. So let's make some children. What we want to provide, so we're going to close it, ant.select. We want a ant.select.option. And that option initially will just be a string. of Sean. So ant select dot option. So this is obviously going to fail because we don't have the option defined over here. So let's go ahead and make a new submodule here. So module option. And it's just going to be the same idea. So we'll copy this over, pretty much verbatim. The one unique thing here is going to be that we're going to use a scope attribute here because this, well, we'll see in just a second. So we'll say ds.scope is inside of select. And now the name is no longer select, instead it's option. And that's because option is actually the equivalent of ant.d or ant.d.select.option. And if we save that, we should be good to go. These are not the right props though. So let's go back to the browser, scroll down to the options properties. We'll inspect this, find the right table, and then same idea. Basically just up, enter. Let's go ahead and find our temp buffer, paste that in there. I'm going to delete the ones that are in there, and now just execute our thing. Should be good to go. There are also children are required for an option. You can't have a blank one, so I'm going to say that's a B. And we'll say the value, I'm just going to lock it down to a string for my purposes. Okay, so this should be good. And let's see if our compiler, how happy it is. So again, we're missing lots of different properties, so we got to make it a option. So let's go ahead and replace the string, looks right, and cannot be applied with label children. Has type, function is applied to, so disabled, class name. Let's see, what is this saying? This is saying we have a type of this, and you're going to return me this, and you said that children. Oh, it's basically saying that I had a typo, because this is going to be applied as the labeled children argument here. Okay, so now let's just do one sanity check. Before here, if we look at the actual generated ants.js, you can see there's pretty much nothing in here. That's because these are just external bindings. There's no actual code for it. If we look, however, at the generated code for our component 1, over here on the left, you can see that it's creating a div. It's then creating an ant.select. It's creating an ant.select.option with the children of Sean. Okay, so with that in mind, let's refresh and see what we have. Looks like we've broken it. Let's inspect and see what our console says. So we need at least a key or a label value for our ops. So this is where we want to start applying some type pressure. So we're going to say that a key is actually not optional. You have to provide a key. And so the key in this case is going to be Sean. Let's see if that helps at all. Okay, so now we have a drop down, and it's a dot dot dot. And it's a dot 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 because this is too small. We haven't actually set the width at all. And to do that, I really want to use a style property. Almost every React component accepts style. So let's see if we can add it here. The way we do styles at the lowest level, if we're not using some nice CSS thing, would be React DOM.style.make, and I'm going to provide it with width is 100%, and let's see if our compiler is happy. It's saying that it can't be applied with label style. So to make it okay with that, I'm going to just come in here and say that style is of type React DOM.style.t, and it is an optional argument. And we should be good to go. Okay, so now it's happy. If we come over here and we refresh, you can see that now the width is taking place. It's 100%. So now I have Sean there. It's looking decent. Let's give a couple of options. So I'm going to say we have Sean, Steve, Yuki, and Yen. I'm going to do list.map over this. We'll say name. For each of these, I'm going to create a option. So name and name. And now we're going to say array.ofList, and then finally array. And this is coming from react.array. So let's see if we can get the syntax correct. We're coming here. That looks right. Looks right. And I guess we'll just try putting it in there. Okay, now it's happy. And now hopefully we should have 3 options from which to choose. And I think it's, no, it's not quite. So we could do for example, this.sort unique if we wanted to sort these, but I think this is fine. Okay, so we have it rendering. It's making use of the underlying components. If we try to pass in, for example, 1, 2, 3, it's going to be upset because those are not actually valid values, saying, hey, you gave me an int and I expected a string, which is what we want, actually. Okay. So now let's add a few more bindings to our select to make it, to take advantage of all the stuff that it can do. So of these ones that I commented out down here, one is called mode. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and add a mode. And to start with, I'll just make it a string. It's easiest. And if we come back in and we say that the mode is going to be multi, maybe. So we'll say mode equals multi. Come over, refresh. And, oh, no, is that not right? Is it multiple? So this is where actually having enums would be nice. So mode multiple. Multiple. Okay, so now we have multiple selections that we can do inside of this, which is pretty nice. If we wanted to, we could obviously come in here and say that we had a type of mode, which is multiple, default. Let's see, what were the others? Multiple, and then tags. I think we can then do a @ps.deriving, and then say like as multiple, and saying I want you to provide converters back and forth from JavaScript to this. So we could add the type safety in a clear way so that we could use enums all the way through, and we could never have typos, but I'll just leave this as is to keep it simple. Okay, so let's add one last feature though, which are some callbacks for select. So we'll say that on select is going to take some value. So I think we said our values are strings, and it is going to return a unit, and it's an optional thing. And we'll also say maybe on blur and on focus. Except that both of these take unit, and then they return unit. Okay, so now inside of here, we can say for this, whenever there is a selection, so on select, we're going to get a value. We can say js.log received value, or selected value, value. So we'll save that. We'll refresh, look at our log here, select some things. It doesn't look like, let's make sure that the compiler is happy. No. Okay, so I use JS log, I need to use JS log 2. Compiler is happy. We refresh, and selected values, and that looks like it's working now. Similarly, we could do on deselect. That's not going to be a property. Say here on deselect, and now it should work. Oh, looks like we should say deselected. Refresh, and let's see. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, added, boom. Okay. And then let's say that on blur, we're going to do one last thing. So on blur, We take a unit, I'll just wrap it in here just to be safe, and we do js.global. All right, so I'm just going to create a little external here called saying that, hey, this is a binding to a global that already exists called alert. So now we can just call it here and say select alert. So this binding says, hey, there just exists some value out there in the world. Just expect that you can reference it. It's cool. That value at runtime is known as alert. I also want to refer to it as alert. It is a function which takes a string and returns a unit. So now whenever we come in here and we go ahead and click through, we get everything, and then we click away, we get blurred. So this is a way to be able to click through, or sorry, to bring in at bindings. You can see that inside of the package.json, I started from just the bare minimum, React starter theme, and added ant.d and bound everything from the ground up. And now it works just fine. Super lightweight. All of the generated code is basically no overhead for what you would actually write normally. Yeah, good to go.